Hello and welcome to Screams and Streams, the podcast that looks at the best and worst horror movies as rated on Rotten Tomatoes from 1970 onwards. I'm your host, Chad Campbell, and with me is my co-host,
Mike Carron.
You can check us out on our website or Instagram if you'd like to. Just a warning, in the podcast, we do jump around in the plot as we talk about the film. If you don't like spoilers, we recommend that you stop listening now, check out the film, and rejoin us. Today we are looking at Richard Donner's film, The Omen. It scored 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. So let's get into it. Mike is going to give us our summary of The Omen.
All right. On IMDb, the plot summary is: mysterious deaths surround an American ambassador. Could the child that he is raising actually be the Antichrist, the devil's own son? And I'm going to use that to segue into my first impressions. I do want to actually jump on this right away because I watched this with the commentary, and Richard Donner and his guests talk a lot about how the whole point of this movie, to make it scary, is it actually the Antichrist, or is this just a child and the dad is misreading things and going crazy, or, you know,
right.
Is he driven to kill his son? Spoiler alert, driven to kill his son or attempt to kill his son erroneously. And it bothers me with that because right off the bat, you've got the upside down cross in the shadow on the credits. You've got the choral music to say that it's religious. Right. You've got the date June 6th, 6 a.m. for the birth. You've got these hellhounds that see him at his birthday party right as the evil sort of starts to manifest. All of these things show you this is the Antichrist. There's 100 signs. And so
Well, then, later on in the film, again, spoiler, when he has to go into his head to find the birthmark, and it's 666 on there, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, it's all legitimately, it's legitimately the Antichrist. And so my first impression of this right out of the gate was just, I didn't get the psychological thriller aspect of it. And because I was looking for that when I was watching it, I didn't think they did a good job of that. I didn't think they did a good job of eroding the father's sort of view of his child or the mother's connection to the child. Like, she goes from loving mother to angry in the pool hall. I know I'm getting into a lot of things that might come up in other categories, but first impressions, this is really the second time I ever saw this. Right. My first viewing, it was, again, I've mentioned this on other movies, 2 a.m. at a sleepover at my friend's house in junior high, where the dad's like, oh, you guys are into horror movies? You should watch The Omen. And so we did. And, 2 a.m., you're tired. It didn't, a few things stuck with me, but it never was a movie that I was like, oh, that was so good. Rewatching it again, I was like, I don't get why this is so big. I don't get why it was such a great deal. A lot of the movies we've done for this podcast, my wife has not seen, and I've made her sit down to watch some of the good, some of the bad, right? Because I'm like, you'll like it. It's a good movie. You've got to watch it. Not once watching The Omen was I ever tempted to show it to Louise.
Interesting.
Yeah. I found the pacing slow. Mm-hmm. The editor of the film talks about how it's quick and it's fast. And this other screenwriter on the commentary talks about how the pacing is really good and it's quick and things keep going like one to another. And
really?
I just found it ploddingly slow. Like it was going nowhere and getting to nowhere until the very end. So that I am crapping all over this movie. I'm going to finish my first impressions with saying, like, Roger Ebert gave it 2.5 out of 5. And I think that's the perfect rating.
Oh yeah.
It's watchable. It's well done. It's Richard Donner's sort of first big feature. He directed a lot of TV before this, but for a first real feature film, or one of his first feature films, I think he did a really good job. The script was decent. It just overall as a film, I'm going to stop on this one, but overall as a film, I just did not come away with it thinking it was good.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of people argue that this is one of the better horror films of that time, but I'd say, 2.5 stars is adequate. I wouldn't say I loved this movie. I didn't hate it. This is about the third or fourth time I've seen this film. I watched it a couple of times when I was younger in high school, watched it in university, and then for this podcast, I rewatched it again. So it's hard to give a first impression. I remember seeing it as a kid, and one of the times I fell asleep. I will agree with your pacing comment. I don't think it moves fast at all. No. I think it just plods along very slowly. It's not for a while until we start to see the first little action. Once the action hits, it gets kind of psycho, but I wouldn't say it gets crazy right away. Like they do one thing and then it takes a while. Yeah. Builds, and they do another thing, then it goes again, and they go traveling around and they're trying to find out what's going on. Yeah, I'd say it doesn't move quickly.
I would argue that I don't even know if I would use the word builds. There's an event and then it goes along and then there's another event. Like I didn't feel a build of tension between the sort of ominous moments of Damien's life. It was just the birthday party happened and then they sort of just lived their life and there was some tension, but no building of tension. And then the zoo. And then they sort of just went along and then the priest at the church. Like I never felt an escalation.
Huh.
Yeah.
See, I'd have to disagree. I did feel an escalation after the birthday party.
Yeah.
Once that happened, it seemed like they were just moving forward to the next event that was going to happen. And so I did feel a little bit of tension, but like I said, it's the fourth time I watched it. So it was okay. It doesn't get there quick. So it takes a while for you to just kind of, all right, yeah, let's get to the point here. And it does take a while. So yeah, I guess my first impression was just a slow moving film. And actually, I didn't particularly like the kid. I know you're not supposed to. He's Damien. He is the Antichrist. But I didn't like him as an actor. I didn't like him. He had no lines. Yeah. So, which is in some ways harder because you have to, convey your emotions and stuff through your facial expressions and through your acting, your body language. And I don't think he didn't sell me on that at all. What's the saying? Don't work with animals and kids. Well, there were animals and kids in this film, and the kid just didn't do it for me. I thought he was not great.
Well, and on that, this was actually something that I kept meaning to write down in my notes so I wouldn't forget it. So I'm glad that you mentioned this with the likability of the child or the no likability of the child,
right?
Especially because we're coming off of just thinking about The Exorcist, where the first half of that film is establishing your presence in the life of Chris and Reagan.
Right.
And you really buy into their domesticity and their family and their love. Yeah. And so when the possession starts to ramp up, you get so disturbed because it's so disruptive to this family that you've bought into.
Well, you've built that relationship with that child, right? And so you are kind of invested. Mm-hmm. They do take a long time with character development in The Exorcist, whereas in this one, hey, here's your baby.
Right. And that's the problem is like, I have no investment. Like it's tragic that their other child died in childbirth.
Yeah.
But I have no emotional attachment to the decision that Gregory Peck makes. Like,
well, that decision is messed up too. Like, let's not tell your wife.
Yeah,
we're just going to switch the baby out. Here, we have another one.
It's like a sitcom where the pet dies. Like, we need another gerbil with a brown spot.
Yes, exactly. It's crazy to think that that's a good idea.
Yeah,
and that any sane person would want to do that to their wife. Yeah, we'll just replace this kid.
But I think, we don't want this movie to be longer, but there could have been something to buy into, like, they are an older couple. Yeah. How many times have they tried? Is this not their first loss? But we have no investment in that desperation to have a child. It's just, your child died. Well, my wife really wants one, so we'll take this one.
Yeah. Yeah. There needs to be more conflict there, not just, I'm going to take whatever comes down the pipe that this weird priest gives me.
Yes. Yeah.
So I didn't buy that. I didn't particularly like that part of the story. And that is really the catalyst that kicks the whole thing off.
Yeah.
It's the one moment where it's like, nah, I think we're good. I'll just tell my wife that we don't need a random child.
Yeah.
I'm going to go tell her that this one passed away as well, and we're going to move on. But yeah, no, we'll take the demon baby who's got a full head of hair as a newborn, which I'm sorry.
See, that comes up later. But when it's like, you should have a birthmark. I know every inch of him. And then I was like, yeah. That kid must have had the thickest hair for a parent not to have seen that birthmark.
Right.
Or maybe it didn't manifest till later. I don't know, but it was like...
It's a large birthmark.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be buried in his hair on his head. And as a child, his hair is thin, still thick as shit, but thin.
Yeah.
And he should have been able to see that, but they don't make reference to that until the very end.
In the first 5 years, they never gave him a decent haircut.
Not once.
They just let it grow long.
They just had him in hats and toques the whole time. we're going to head into our tropes hall of shame. I'm going to kick this one off first. My first trope is you see this in lots of horror films, red flags all over the place and nobody bites. There's just this random nanny that shows up after a suicide.
Yes.
Who called you? Oh, the agency sent me over. Oh, the agency. Well, then we're all good. You just come. May I see your child? Yes, for sure. Go see the child. Like, I don't think that's right. There's also all these weird things are happening around this child and nobody raises any questions. The mom denies it. Gregory Peck's character is just, I'm just the ambassador.
And I think that plays to the whole, if they're trying to establish the sort of psychological tension of, is it the Antichrist? Is it just coincidence and Gregory Peck is being driven to this decision?
Right.
They could have done so much more with that. They could have played with it a lot better.
There should have been, a little bit more, not conflict, but basically we should have seen him almost like people thinking he's crazy kind of thing where he's flip-flopping back and forth and he's like, why is this kid? And him almost stalking the child to see what's going to happen next around him.
Yes.
There should have been more red flags between the nanny and the father so that at the end, when there's that fight scene that they have, which we'll talk about later, that the stakes are higher. There's more to lose, right? But they didn't do that. All of a sudden she flips out and starts attacking him and they fight forever. Yeah. And
Gregory Peck is surrounded by people that affirm that it's the Antichrist.
Yes.
The priest shows up yelling about the jackal.
Yelling, yeah.
And then the priest that meets in the park, is quoting Revelations. Yeah. The reporter buys into it too. You're right. Nobody around him is he doesn't sit down for a whiskey with someone and go there's something with my kid. It's are you sure? They never have that discussion. It's just immediately affirming it is the Antichrist. So again, there's no doubt. There's no question.
Yeah. He sits down for whiskey and says, there's something wrong with my kid. And everybody around him says, no shit. Your kid is messed up.
He is the Antichrist. Kill him. Okay.
All right. You need to get these daggers. Yeah. That was my trope, was red flags all over the place and nobody's buying.
I'm going to piggyback with one of my tropes just because around the nanny. And it is that whole I didn't find her. I thought you found her.
Yeah.
No parent is going to have a stranger show up at their house and be believe the agency. I love how it's the agency. The agency, which one? So there's that question. And then.
But his line after that is gold. It's the agency sent me over. Well, there you have it.
I guess we accept it. Here is my printed references that I could have written or had anybody make.
Yeah.
Immediately call the agency just to verify. No, they don't. They just fully accept it. She commits fireable offense after fireable offense. And they're just the argument about going to church.
Yeah. Right out of the gate.
Yeah. Nope, he shouldn't go to church. Well, I want him ready. And I actually liked Lee Remick in that scene because it was just no, I'm the mother. Fuck you. Listen to me. He's ready in 5 minutes in the car.
Get him in the car 5 minutes now. Yeah.
But there should have been the follow-up conversation with Gregory Peckwing. I don't like her. She doesn't listen and she's argumentative. Let's turf her. Nope. Let's keep her.
Yeah.
So that's my trope of just everyone just accepts the nanny right off the bat and nobody questions.
No, I agree. That one's rough, especially for a rich family like that. There would be so much security she would have to go through in order to get a job with that family.
The ambassador to the United States in the UK.
Yeah.
Potentially in line for the presidency.
She's not just walking up to a door saying, oh, I heard your last nanny killed herself, so here are my references.
There's no runner of the servants or runner of the staff that says, well, we'll check and verify. No, just...
out of her Mary Poppins bag. I wonder if they did that on purpose. The way she approaches the door and everything is very Mary Poppins-ish.
Maybe.
She's just hello, Mom. My other trope, they go to a graveyard at night. Ooh, when does that happen in a horror film? Yeah. All the time. And they have the gate with the little spires on the top, those arrow-like top edges. Yeah. So they hop over there to dig up these graves to find out whether his child was buried in the graveyard. And they hop over the fence because the graveyard's locked, and then they get chased by hounds.
Yep.
So but graveyard at night, that's a big one for me.
This one, the trope of a demon or a spirit being revealed when you're processing film in a dark room.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a neat idea. And I think, in 1970s photography had been around for a while, but the use of that in horror films is a good idea because if photography had started at the same time as motion pictures and like telling horror. I think it would have been great to have this whole moment in society where it's like, it could expose the demon, it could expose the evil.
Right.
But I think by the 1970s, photography's been around long enough that while it is a good technique or a good motif in films, by now it's been done to death. There's so many films that just completely revolve around like this weird flash of light over certain people in the film, or the spectral image in the background to show that there's a place that's haunted.
What I did like about it though is they made it like almost like a smudge, like just a mark in the photo, as opposed to having his face warped or having like a bright light where his face didn't develop or something like that. It just has almost like a black line. And then the closer they are to death, the more prominent that line becomes.
Yeah, I did like that as well.
I like that. But you're right. But by 1976, was photography being used to death?
That's why I think in 1976, I think it was still a unique idea or a newer idea.
Right.
But just by 2023.
Oh, it's done to death.
Yeah.
Now everybody's got a camera.
The instant you see a photo being taken in a horror movie, you know there's a scene later where zoom in, right? Like click, 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 enhance.
My other one, I know they're an older couple, but to me, Gregory Peck looks way older than his wife in this. So the old man with the young woman, I think he's 50 in real life. He was 59 or 60 when he took on this role. And she looks like she's maybe late 30s, maybe early 40s.
She was 39, 40. Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. She's at least 20 years younger than he is. And that's just something that Hollywood does.
Yeah.
It's just old guys, young females. I just think it's a trope that's been done to death from the dawn of movies, it seems.
Yeah. Who runs Hollywood back then? Men, right? So
I'm gonna put someone my own age in this stuff. Come on.
All these over the hill studio runners, like, yeah. Let the old guy have the young hot wife. Make that normal, so it's okay for me.
Yeah.
I had one last trope, and it's the very last shot of the film, where both Gregory Peck and Liam Remmick's characters are now dead, and we have the funeral in Washington, D.C. And we see...
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about the scene more later or not. Is this on any of your lists?
No.
Okay, so they do a good job of, there's two coffins, and even I was assuming that one was Damien, one was the father.
Right.
But then, the camera pans down while it's like, your car is ready, Mr. President, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you see Damien standing between the president and his security guard. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, I thought that was kind of well done. Like this idea of like, Damien did live. He didn't stab in time, whatever. Yeah. But then Damien turns and looks at the camera, spikes the camera, and then slowly smiles.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it was like Michael Jackson's Thriller. And it made me think of like the end of Django Unchained, or maybe not the end, but that scene in Django Unchained when he leaves the plantation. Yeah. And he's just like, aren't I a wascally wabbit towards the camera kind of look. Yeah. So it's just that turn to the camera of the antagonist or protagonist and smiling like in a gotcha kind of way.
Right.
Has been done to death.
Our next category is one-liners. So quotes from the film that we thought jumped out at us. Mike, you're going to take the lead on this one.
I only had one for this section because there are a few lines where they are iconic and they are associated with the film and we know them. But the one line that I really liked was when Gregory Peck is at his office and I don't know what word to use, but the frantic priest comes in to warn him that Damien is the Antichrist and he needs to take communion every day. And
oh yeah, take the blood of Christ.
Yeah, the body and the blood of Christ every day. And I saw its mother, right? And he doesn't say, I saw his mother.
You saw my wife.
You saw my wife. And it's like, no, I saw its mother. Yeah. Its mother is a ja. I had to stop. Like, it's a ja. So I went back and watched it. Like, oh, it's a jackal. Okay. But I did like that where, as an audience member, it is a boy child, or it is a child. It is a boy. It is a he. Yeah. But then the people that are discussing this, it's a demon. Damien is a demon, is not human, doesn't deserve the pronoun he. Right. Damien is an it. And I quite like that line.
Interesting. So I had two. The one that I had was from the nanny. Look at me. It's all for you, Damien. Right before she jumps off and kills herself. And then the other one I had wasn't a spoken line. It was just the one from the very end at the end credits Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. I just thought that was really cool. And it's awesome in Iron Maiden's Mark of the Beast.
Someone needs to re-edit and add that song at the end of this movie.
I know, for the credits. But those were my 2 one-liners out of the film that I liked the most.
I did like the "It's all for you, Damien," just to draw the crowd's attention. And also just because to anyone that doesn't understand what's going on with this whole Antichrist thing, I mean, as the audience, we don't quite know it yet either, but everyone at that party should be like, what the hell does that even mean? It's all for you, Damien jumps off a roof. Like,
look at me, Damien, I love you. Yeah. And then it's all for you. And then she jumps and kills herself and goes through the window.
And then nobody questions it. Nobody talks about it. Nobody invests. Like,
it's never brought up again.
We need a Jallo level man investigating what that meant.
That's right. And again, nobody investigates it but the photographer. I don't know what it is about horror films and the police not doing anything, but it's always some random dude that decides to take up the case and figure stuff out. And that's exactly what happens in this film. This nanny kills herself. He takes pictures all over the complex and follows the ambassador, and then he starts to figure stuff out and piece things together. So he calls him in and starts saying, hey, let's look into this a little more. Yeah. And I'm like, why is he doing this? There's no lead detective that's on the case. That's things aren't adding up. Or
I guess just deemed a suicide. So
I guess
they just walk away from that investigation. But I do love, and I don't think I put it in my notes. After she says, it's all for you, Damien, and she jumps and crashes through the window. Yeah. It cuts to the crowd reaction, and there's all these horrified people, but there's one girl at the party who looks like she could be watching paint dry. Yeah. Like, and she's front and center on the camera, and she's just glazed over, staring. Just not into it at all, yeah. But it doesn't convey shock. It just, it's like she didn't know they'd called action. She's just like, just waiting for my cue. And then they cut away, and I was just like, it just was so funny to me. Because everyone else, shocked. One girl, bored to death. Yeah, that's hilarious. That birthday party was out of hand. Oh, yeah.
I got annoyed actually watching it. I thought, this spoiled brat. Yeah. Like, look at this guy. He's got a carousel. This weird looking clown is there. Like, they've got ponies and everything out in their front yard and stuff like that. That birthday party annoyed me.
Yeah, but I know people that have had birthday parties almost like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, I got to talk to the petting zoo and the bouncy castle people and the food trucks.
That's right.
For my child's 1 year birthday.
Yeah. You know, he's not going to realize any of this is happening, right? Moving on, we're going to go to what doesn't hold up. Mike, you're going to kick us off with this one as well. What doesn't hold up in this film for you?
First one is the abandoned cemetery or the cemetery.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I know it is a trope and it's there and it's the classic to the horror films. And I don't know if it's because it's the 4K restoration or the HD restoration of the film. It was clearly a soundstage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It just looked too fake. It looked like the old Paramount studio horror classics. Again, maybe better shot in black and white like we've seen with some of our films so you don't notice the facade of it.
Right.
But yeah, it just seemed... It was too fake.
It's funny you say that because I made a note of that as well. I didn't put it in this. It didn't make it on because I put it in a trope, but it does look very fake. Yeah.
And then the dogs, apparently they used real Rottweilers and they used elastics to pull their cheeks back to get them to snarl. Ooh. And there's a commentary about that later. But even those looked fake. Like I felt like I was watching a bunch of sort of Triumph the Insult comic dogs sort of held in front of the camera and just like, rawr. And so it really took me out of the moment just because it became so manufactured at that point.
Well, and you could tell some of the barking from those dogs was dubbed in, right? So like that's not them barking. They were barking off stage and then they plugged it in because there's lots of times where the bark is just so much the same and just repeating that you're just okay.
Yeah, someone's got it to a synthesizer. Just
all right, my turn. I had a few of doesn't hold up. Number one for me was the mannequin head when the photographer gets his head sliced off, which I thought was a pretty gruesome scene to begin with, but afterwards when the head's laying on the ground and you see it flip around in the air and stuff, they really take their time with this scene. And maybe in 1976 it looked amazing, but in 2023 it looks pretty fake and his mannequin head just looks bad. So that one did not age well for me. It just didn't look good. I also had way too much music. The audio in this just at the first half of the film just drove me crazy. I was like, every scene had some violin stuff in there. And I'm going to talk about music later, but that was one of my things as well. Kids acting. I thought Damien was shit. Smoking around photochemicals, always a good idea. So this guy's, the photographer's developing his pictures. He's got a full-on cigarette just in there, just puffing away in his dark room. And, you know, maybe nothing's going to happen, but the chemicals, it's in a fairly tight room. I don't know if you're really supposed to be smoking in there. You wouldn't nowadays anyways.
I'm going to give you an aside on that.
Okay.
I'm reading a mystery book, and there's a scene where they're torturing a guy with gasoline and they flick a cigarette at him.
Ooh.
And he freaks out. But then, and the police talk about this afterwards as well, cigarettes don't burn hot enough to ignite the gas.
Interesting.
So anytime you've seen that in a movie where they flick it, it would never happen. Yeah. So maybe he knew his cigarette wouldn't, but it was just an interesting.
Yeah. One more I had, and that was just the overall look of the blood. In these older horror films, they really struggle getting the blood to look right, and some do it well. This one did not.
And I really noticed it when Lee Remick falls to her death.
Yes.
And they've got the tight shot and the blood comes out of her mouth.
That was in the house, though. That was when she just broke her arm.
Sorry, not to her death.
Yeah. And when she falls through the car, that one she doesn't.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. When Lee Remick falls over the railing and breaks her back.
Yeah.
They zoom in tight to her face and she drools the blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was distractingly bad. And I feel like it wasn't even necessary. They should just had her lay there with her glazed eyes.
Yeah.
It would have been just as
fine.
effective.
Yeah. They didn't need any extra bits there at all. And the amount of blood in here is actually, fairly minimal compared to, what it could be. Like that severed head could have just went crazy, but there was like no blood, just cut it clean.
Yeah.
Cauterized it as it cut through. I don't know.
Yeah, there's no arteries in the neck.
No, none whatsoever. Moving on, we're going to go to most gratuitous scene. I am going to take the lead on that one. And the most gratuitous for me was, and this doesn't have to be super violent or anything like that. It's just kind of what takes you out of the moment. And for me, it was that birthday party. I hated it so much. Maybe there's some childhood jealousy there that I didn't get a pony to ride on my 5th birthday or something. But for me, I just didn't like the birthday party. I didn't really think it was, well, I guess it was necessary to kind of show what was going on and the nanny killing herself and moving on with the protective nanny that he gets. But I didn't think it needed to be as long. It seemed to be a very long scene.
Yes.
That I think could have been pared down quite. If there was a little more, I would have taken a little more character development at the beginning and a pared down birthday scene.
Yeah, instead of just a quick montage of family photos, they could have done more with the personalization of that.
Yes, trying to build that relationship between the audience and the characters, I think would have gone a lot farther than doing this. And then when the nanny dies, you don't really get to know the nanny much anyways. So it's just kind of, whoa, what the heck's going on? For me, it was too long and it just didn't do it for me. So that was my most gratuitous. Just too long of a birthday scene.
For me, for most gratuitous, I actually struggled to find one. Because again, like I was almost looking for the gore, looking for the violence of it. And so for me, I think it would be the description of what to do with the knives. He goes and meets Bugenhagen and he gives him these, I think it's 7 knives that have to be stabbed into Damien. This idea of like, not only is it you have to kill the child, but you have to stab it in its heart. And that becomes the center of the crucifix that you then have to stab out using the other 6 knives.
Oh, it's super violent. Yeah.
So we don't actually see that, but just this, I was like, that is literal overkill. Yeah. It's just too much.
Sorry, I just want to chime in. That brings me back to a what doesn't hold up part that I missed is his overacting when he I will not kill a child when he throws those knives and he just chews up the scene in that scene. It's crazy how much he really sells it.
Well, it's great because they cut to David Warner, who plays Jennings, the photographer, and it's almost like he doesn't know what to do. Like
I know. He's just kind of shocked. He's like, what? what's going on?
Like I feel like Peck rehearsed it at a very different level and then really gave it in the performance.
It's like, we need to raise the stakes. Yeah. I'm just going to nail this sucker.
Because David Warner is like distractingly shocked at that moment beyond just like I thought we were here to find out how to kill a child. And now you're saying it was so over the top.
So sorry to interrupt, but that was my, what doesn't hold up my other one. Sorry.
No problem. I want to add one more gratuitous just because you mentioned the sort of sound at the party and the over the topness of that.
Yeah.
It's the editing.
Okay.
Where I don't know, anytime they were trying to build tension, I think this is where my problems with the pacing come from, is that a lot of this film is long shots and slow, but anytime there's a moment of tension or evil, it's so many hard, quick edits and cuts and switches. And I get that they're trying to establish the chaos of it or the freneticness of the scene. Like the baboon attack has so many quick edits. Yeah. The drive up to the church, it's view of the church inside the car, outside the car, view of the church inside the car, Damien's perspective, Dad's perspective.
There are a ton of driving scenes and a ton of different angles during those driving scenes.
Well, even the beginning where he's driving to the hospital at 6 a.m., it's like, we don't need this many action shots of driving through.
They really like to shoot from behind through the window, like you're a passenger or like a passenger in the vehicle. And then there was one that shoots through a fence. Yeah. And you see it kind of roll in, and then you get it from behind as it's rolling in. And it's just driving.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's because of that difference, it shifts the pace of the film and becomes too much, too distracting.
Yeah.
And the other one I was going to talk about where the editing became distracting was the tricycle scene.
Oh yeah.
Where the mom is trying to figure out what's like, try to water the plant or fix the plant. And then she's on the chair and it cuts, like you see Damien going in circles on his tricycle. Then it's back to the mom in the hallway, back to the tricycle, close up on the wheels, wide shot, shows Baylock. And it's just way too many edits. And I'm going to say this now because I'm so frustrated. No, I'm going to say this now, but in one of the commentaries, Richard Donner claims that scene, the tricycle scene in The Omen, is what inspired and what Stanley Kubrick stole from or borrowed from to do the tricycle scene in The Shining.
Really?
But if you watch them, I didn't watch them side by side. I've seen The Shining enough. When Danny's riding his tricycle through the overlook, it's a steady cam follow 90% of the time. Yeah. Right. It's not these quick action shots and you get that rhythm of carpet, hardwood. So the sound, I think, has a rhythm to it. Yeah. The editing doesn't. And so for him to say Stanley Kubrick used that, stole that, borrowed that for The Shining, I think is trying to make too big of a claim to your influence
on that film, because
they're very different atmosphere, different tone. It's just a kid on a tricycle.
There's something spooky about a kid on a tricycle sometimes, but I don't know. I think that's a stretch as well. But who knows? Maybe he saw it and was, let's put the kid on a trike. But they did it very differently. As you said, like he's going straight. He's not just going in a circle and then shooting out the door. Yeah. Right? So,
and then the other thing that sort of that scene bothered me with, and this isn't anything to do with gratuitous, is there's a Jim Jarmusch film, and I don't know what film it's from, but it's a minute where he's just in a room riding a bike in a circle, having a conversation with someone in the middle of the room. And it's such a ridiculous moment in that movie that watching this, I'm like, all I can think of was that horrible Jim Jarmusch scene. So again, took me out of my experience with The Omen.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our next category, which is Stood the Test of Time. I'm going to kick off Stood the Test of Time. When Gregory Peck's character got the news that his wife was dead, I thought he acted that scene very well. My note is the stress of the wife dying was well done.
Yes.
So I did like that part of the film. He didn't seem to overact that and make it cheesy. He seemed to genuinely be upset. You really bought what he was doing there. So that stood the test of time for me.
Richard Donner talks about that scene in one of the commentary tracks because Gregory Peck really wanted it to be, he was in his hotel room and he destroys everything. Clear stuff off the counter. Like he's so distraught and upset and enraged that he wasn't home to protect his wife that he just destroys the room, a la Apocalypse Now almost level of destruction. And Donner's like, no, we're going to have that shot where Jennings comes back up the stairs, comes into the room and sits out of focus behind you. We're going to keep you tight. And then we're going to dolly in on your face while you're like dealing with that loss. and they shot that, not the destruction.
Perfect.
And then I guess Gregory Peck the next day when they were going over the dailies walked up to Donner and was like, "You were right, and I'm sorry."
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because I guess it became a bit of, not a dust up, but it was a tense argument between Peck, who's trying to like, I'm Gregory Peck. I was Atticus Finch. I know a lot. You are this up and comer. Yeah. And so it was a cool little anecdote there. And especially the first time when I watched the film, it was a great shot and I appreciated the work and the dolly in and the use of focus there. But listening to the commentary and hearing that like really drew that scene out for me even more. So,
oh, and man, if they would have done it the way Peck wanted to, it would have been in my tropes or one of my things that didn't hold up or subject, because he would have just, again, way over the top.
Yeah. And it would have been chewing the scenery.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I'm glad they chose to do it the way they did. That's good. All right, Mike, are you up for what stood the test of time for you?
Funnily enough, it's one of the things that you've already sort of complained about. Seems to happen often where you bring up something on an earlier category. I'm like, I might just cross that out. But I'm not going to cross this out because I actually really liked it. And it is Damien's facial features.
Really?
His character has what, like, no, mommy, no, and daddy. And that's about it. Or right. No, it's no daddy, no.
No daddy, no,
yeah.
Right at the end. Yeah.
And there's something like with mommy. But that scene when they're driving to the church.
Oh, you like that scene? I thought it was so bad. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Not the whole scene, not the overreaction attack in the back seat.
Okay.
Literally Damien's facial expressions while they're driving up to the church.
Okay.
If you watch just that.
Yeah.
He actually does a good job of conveying like fear, anxiety.
I don't want to go to this place.
I don't want to go to this place. Damien knows it's not a good place to be.
Right.
When he loses his shit in the back seat and attacks mom. No, that's not part of this. So it is just that I pause the movie. I'm like, Damien's facial features does a great job of showing anxiety.
Okay.
And then I hit play and watch the rest of it play out. What is interesting in that one, again, from the commentary, is Richard Donner was in the front seat of the car, basically yelling at the actor.
Oh, at the kid?
At the kid.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, to get those expressions on his face. Because, of course, like, if you tell a kid, like, you need to convey anxiety, fear, and trepidation.
Yeah, you're not going to get
no 5-year-olds, you're like, oh, I've got that.
I got this, yo.
So I did like it. I thought that was good.
All right. Well, I'll go back and watch it, but I let's agree to disagree on that one for
just the 5 seconds.
Yeah. Okay.
I have one more.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
And this is during the baboon scene. It was over the top. It was too much. It was too much noise. But the sound of the claws on the glass.
Oh yeah.
That sharp squeal. I had to turn the volume down. Like it was like nails on a chalkboard. And I don't know if that sound design got pulled up in the restoration or if it was there in the original, because I don't remember the viewing of the original.
Right.
To have that sound effect in, I think will always stand the test of time. Nobody will never be unsettled by that.
Right. I actually liked the baboon scene. I thought it built tension. It was crazy. I've been around monkeys when they go a little nuts, and it's scary. And baboons are their teeth are huge. And
they are vicious looking.
They're vicious looking beasts. And then they just come around, and at first they're scared and they just go crazy on the car.
Did your research bring up how they got that shot or how they got that sequence?
They had something in the vehicle, didn't they? Didn't they have like a banana or something? Not a banana. That's too
on point.
Stereotypical. Sorry, monkeys.
Well, at first, like they
had something in there.
They tried it with bananas.
Right.
And the baboons just went and ate the bananas. They then tried it with a baby baboon.
Ooh.
And again, the baboons were just sort of like, why is it in there? Looking around. So the baby baboon didn't work. And then they took the alpha of the pack and put it into the backseat of the car. And the baboon troop just went nuts to get their leader back. And then I guess inside the car, the alpha was like freaking out as well.
Oh, for sure it would be.
In the car is like Lee Remick, Damien, and Richard Donner, and this baboon. So the fear and the screams of Lee Remick are legitimately
real.
Yeah, legit terror because there's this wild animal flipping out.
With fangs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they got the shots quick and then let the thing out and like shut the doors. So yeah, Richard Donner talks about that, and he's, they were low budget and they were just trying to figure out what to do. And they're like, so we tried that and it worked. And thankfully nobody got hurt.
Isn't it so funny how these old films, lots of them were, for the most part, I guess a lot of the horror films we've watched have been low budget, but the way they just try things, it's like, well, I don't know, like safety just goes out the window. We need the shot.
Yeah.
So let's just try to put this alpha baboon in with you and see what happens.
We'll just play fast and loose with our OHS.
I had one more that stood the test of time, and it was the wife getting thrown out of the hospital window. The shots to Baylock, the nanny, and her weird psycho grin. That woman just unbelievably unsettling from the minute she enters the scene.
Yeah.
You know something's up. You know it's wrong. She's got this frickin' mole on her face that I just could not stop looking at. But she does a great job. It stood the test of time. Baylock, that character alone.
Yeah, Billy Whitelaw, the actress.
Yeah, just amazing. And when she comes in, and it just does a really close-up shot of her eyes, just her face as she's walking towards the wife. And she just smiles. And then she just gets pushed out and she falls and goes right through the ambulance roof.
And then rolls out the back.
So that death was pretty awesome. I did like that. We're going to move into our audio category now, where we go eerie to ear splitting. Mike, you're going to kick us off. What did you think of the audio in this film?
The audio, like the actual audio itself, the sound design I thought was good. The storm was believable. The lightning sound was pretty good. And they had like, I guess they added human voices when it struck the gate. The music though itself, it won an Academy Award and I thought it was terrible.
What? It won an Academy Award?
Yeah, Jerry Goldsmith got an Academy Award for this. No, I found the music right off the bat. The Domus Dominus Sanctus Hominus. The instant it started, I think this is another film that suffers from parody.
Yeah.
There's so many movies now where this choral chanting comes in to sort of oversell the evil of a scene or something. I feel like there's like 8 Simpsons episodes that do it.
Well, and we've watched The Devil's Reign and it had some choral stuff going on. Like anything that's cult-like or deals with Satan seems to have the
But so it just, eerie to ear splitting. It was ear splitting. It was distracting. And again, in the commentary, they just kept talking about how great Jerry Goldsmith's music was in this. And so a couple of times I really tried to pay attention to the sort of the non-choral music cues,
right?
Where we're getting these like dramatic stings and things like that. And there were a few that were well done. There's a few that were oversold, but I feel the film did a better job with the silence. There's great scenes where you have this buildup of music and it just goes silent.
Yeah.
And I think it does more with that silence than it ever does with its music.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. I think there was way too many scenes with music in it that didn't need to be. The whole part where they're trying to build this like quick relationship with Damien, it's music throughout the whole thing. The next scene where they're walking, the birthday scene where there's music in that. It just seems the whole first half of the film, there's not a rest. It's not until later that you start to get these scenes where they're just talking and you don't get that music that seems very invasive in the scenes. So yeah, I agree. It's ear splitting for me as well. Not a fan. Sorry, Jerry. Didn't do it for me. Your Oscar is shit.
Well, the Oscars usually are.
All right, moving on to back it up moments. Mike, did you have one that you'd like to see again?
This is another one where you say something earlier that makes me wish that I had written something else down. The death of the reporter and the decapitation.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, when it takes away, like, once the decapitation happens, it seems to hold on too long with it flowing through the air, rolling on the ground into the reflection. But so many times in films, we see like the sword swing and we see the head on the ground. Yeah. But this one, like, I thought it was really well done. You see it coming a mile away.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to kneel down here. Guy gets out of truck, bumps the e-brake. Like it's, we're just going to carry this pane of glass back and forth across the street. I thought, well done for just showing the whole thing. Yes, it's a mannequin. Yes, it's fake, but it was still, I liked it. I thought it was well done.
It's funny you say that because that is one of my back it up moments as well, even though I shit on it a little bit. Yeah. Because it's not until after the actual beheading where they really milk it.
Right.
And then they show his head on the ground and everything like that. It's not until there where I really start to lose it. The whole thing leading up to it, the actual pane of glass coming through and hitting his neck and like sending the head up. I mean, you want to talk about quick cuts. There's one place where you should have had like boom, 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 so that, and then maybe a far shot, like a pan out shot, so you couldn't really see the head as clear as you could.
I liked the reflection in the glass though, after of the surprised look in the eyes of Jennings.
Right.
So I think, had they gone from glass through the neck, head pops off, and then the decapitated head maybe just like settling on the ground, because his eyes were wide open, literally caught unawares, obviously. I thought that was good, but it was the milking of it in
like
between
the
was too much.
slow-mo as it's flipping through the air, and then the whole, I was just I'm done with this scene. But the initial part, I agree, it did look pretty cool until it didn't. And then of course I had the nanny hanging. That one, I could, not that I could watch it forever. It's very disturbing, but it is, I thought it was well done. Apparently she got hurt on that harness, which they were going to do something like that with the wife.
Yes.
And she didn't want to because the nanny got hurt on the last one. So she said no. So then they just opted up to just have her fall from the window into the car.
And I can't remember where I was listening, but they talked about perhaps Ellen Burstyn getting injured on the set of Exorcist also caused Lee Remick to say no.
Right.
Like, you've got someone injured on the Exorcist doing a harness stunt. You have the nanny getting injured.
So she backed out of that. So, but the look at me, Damien, as we made reference to before, and then she just jumps in. It is very disturbing. I do remember watching it the very first time and seeing that scene and being like, whoa, what's going on here?
I did have that one written down for back it up, but because you crapped all over it earlier, I'm like,
you scratched it out?
I was like, I don't want both of my back it ups to be things that you've
shat on.
But I did like the birthday party. We get the dog and the evil music, and Damien waves to the dog, but that hanging comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. It happens right after. So the wife, Lee Remick, takes Damien away from the nanny and is like, it's okay, I can do it. I'll just take him. And she's like, oh no, ma'am, I can do it. And she's like, no, I'll take him. And so she takes him, and then right afterwards she goes up there, look at me, Damien, it's all for you, and then jumps and dies. It's whoa. I think really this film struggles for me with those scenes that I've kind of come down on is it just could have been tightened up. I think they just go on too long.
Yes.
And if they would have like shaved, 30 seconds to a minute here or 30 seconds to a minute here, and we had a running time of an hour and a half as opposed to an hour and 50 minutes, I think there wouldn't be as much to talk about.
And I love the idea of, had I been in the cinema in 1976 knowing nothing about the film,
right,
that scene at the birthday party would have
it would have been a jump scare. It would have been, what's she doing up there? And then boom. Yeah, for sure.
And the reporter's decapitation. Yeah. Where even though we've seen all this evil happening, seeing that in a theater would have just...
Well, in 1976, like to see this guy's head be removed, it would have been huge. Like that's a big, violent scene to have in a film. And I think it would have disturbed a lot of people. And at that time, it wouldn't have looked like I'm coming at it looking through 2023 lens, where I've seen so many horror movies and special effects and practical effects have come so far since that film. So, I mean, try to give them the benefit of the doubt, but just watching it just didn't look good at that last part.
Think back to the decapitation scene from Madhouse in 1975.
Right.
We don't see the decapitation happen, but then he knocks his fiance's head off her body.
That's right.
And it's so terrible. So terrible compared to this one.
That is true, yeah.
So in 1 year, they progressed a bit.
Fair enough. I'll give that to you. All right. So now we're going to go into bonus features. Mike, you're going to head us up with that one.
Yeah. So again, as is becoming the trope of the podcast, we had a version of the film that had 4 audio commentaries, and I listened to pretty much 3.5 of them before running out of time for the recording. So most of mine comes from that. A couple of things that came up in the first commentary with Scott Michael Bosco, who is he works for the digitalcinema.info website. He talked about how Rosemary's Baby was really the first Antichrist film, where before this we hadn't had like that demon seed or the evil child, and The Omen was the second. And Richard Donner also talked about this in one of the other audio commentaries where they had Rosemary's Baby, The Omen, The Exorcist, and then he was trying to remember the fourth studio, and he's like, maybe it was The Visitor.
Oh,
yeah. It was like another sort of big studio's attempt at the Antichrist or demon seed motif. And he just sort of talked about how, like, 3 were good. A couple other bits. The budget was $2 million. Well, it depends on who you listen to. Donner claims that the budget was $2,025,000, but in another audio commentary, he claims that it was $2,800,000. So I think with marketing and that, but the film made $61 million.
Ooh, that's huge.
Yeah, like that's massive.
Yeah. Got 2 Oscar nominations, Best Original Score, and that's the only one it won.
And best original song.
Oh, yeah. And then it spawned the Omen 2 and the Omen 3. And in 81, the Omen 4, The Awakening.
I didn't know there was a 4th in the early trilogy. Or I guess not a trilogy anymore.
Yep.
Even in the commentary, they only talked about a trilogy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because it says the Omen 2 was released 2 years later. Then the third one, Omen 3, The Final Conflict. And then in 81... Omen 4, The Awakening. Oh, sorry. It says, in 91, Omen 4, The Awakening.
Oh, okay.
And then there was a remake in 2006, which I didn't see. Did you see that one?
I saw it, and it wasn't anything of note. Even though I didn't really remember my first watching back in junior high, watching the 2006 one, I remember I did see it in the theater. It didn't carry weight. It didn't carry tension. It was around that era in the 2000s where they were remaking so much, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Amityville Horror.
Was it a shot-for-shot remake, or did they try to do something else with it?
They changed up a bit, but it was still stylized. It was just stylized to the 2000s, and it kind of takes you away from what Omen in the 70s was doing.
Okay.
Even though I don't think they did it well.
Right. Okay, continue on. You got some more?
Just 2 more sort of comical ones. Donner mentions this multiple times when the Rottweilers are on screen.
Oh, yeah.
Where they were having difficulties trying to get them to act vicious because the Rottweilers just kept trying to mate. So they're trying to get the Rottweilers to fight, and the dogs were just trying to hump each other. So then, and even in the cemetery, like that's why they had to use the elastics to like pull their teeth back, because they needed to like get these dogs separated and look angry, because they were just in rutting season, apparently. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then the way that Harvey Stephens got the part is they auditioned a bunch of different kids, and they still hadn't found anybody. And so he came in, they were just looking at school children, and he came in, and for his audition, I guess Donner asked him to like just go crazy, like do the attack in the car scene, basically.
Oh, yeah. And
he split Lee Remick's lip in the audition and kicked Donner in the nuts.
Whoa.
And so Donner's just like, you got the part, kid. Because he was just so over the top. And then I have one more.
Okay.
It's a tonal shift. I didn't know this, but in one of the commentaries with Brian Helgeland, who's a screenwriter and just a good friend of Donner, so no attachment to the film, but just knows Richard Donner. Gregory Peck lost his child shortly before filming began of this.
I had heard that. Yeah.
So just how tough would that be to be like, you just lost your child and now you're going to act in a movie where you have to kill your child? Like,
yeah.
That's all I have for research from the commentary. I have some stuff just about cast and where they are now, or what else they did.
Right.
We actually haven't done this a lot with some of our other films, but I think it's because the casts were either very well known or hadn't gone anywhere. When this one, it was very much a who's who when you looked at the film credits.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of big names in it. Yeah.
Like I feel like I don't even need to mention Richard Donner's CV, but Goonies, Superman, Lethal Weapon, Superman 2, Supergirl. Yeah. Gregory Peck, of course, we all know as To Kill a Mockingbird, but David Warner, who played Jennings the photographer, was in Tron, Scream 2, Time Bandits. He was in Titanic, Star Trek 6, and he's done a ton of voice acting in like the Batman Beyond animated series and Gargoyles and a few others. And
that guy, okay.
Yeah, and Total Recall video games and things like that. Patrick Troughton, who plays the priest who gets stabbed with the spear through the neck.
Oh, yeah.
He was the second Doctor of the Doctor Who series. Jerry Goldsmith, while we didn't like his score, he's done over 700 scores in his career. Chinatown, Star Trek, Poltergeist, First Blood, Alien, The Secret of Nim, Gremlins. Like
I like all those films.
Yeah, and the music is not jarringly upsetting like it is. So
it's actually well done.
He's gotten better. And then John Richardson, who did the special effects, also worked on Aliens and Harry Potter films.
Oh.
And just my last piece is Charlton Heston was considered for the role of Robert Thorne, which eventually went to Gregory Peck.
Right.
But Heston turned it down because evil wins. And he didn't want to be in a film where evil wins.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I had found out just another little thing about the animals there, that the hellhounds, even though they were trying to mate, they often would turn and attack their trainers.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And seriously injured a stuntman, Terry Walsh. Despite his preparation, he got hurt. There's stories of planes being hit by lightning.
The plane that the cast was supposed to be on, they chartered the plane, and yeah, they were supposed to go into the plane, but then the charter company's like, no, we've got a different one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the crew technically could have been in that storm.
Yeah. There are a few of those. Lightning narrowly missed striking the producer Harvey Bernhard on the set.
Eesh.
It's funny because when you do research, you watch these films and you kind of hear about all the weird things that happen. Like, I remember hearing about Passion of the Christ, weird things happening on set with that. So anything to do with the supernatural or the devil and the angels and stuff seem to have problems during production.
Richard Donner does talk about that with Stuart Baird, the editor, and they're talking about some of the on-set or around the production events. And Donner's like, it's kind of funny. Anytime someone does a horror movie, you just hear about all these like creepy things.
Yeah.
But nobody comes off of a comedy and says like, oh man, all these funny things happened while we were filming. And I was like, it's so true. Nobody talks about all the drama that takes place during the filming of a drama.
No.
It's only horror films and supernatural.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So of course, if you look for it, you're going to find coincidences.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It's just like,
That's actually really a good point. That's really funny. Yeah. No, it talks about the funny things because they capture them in the blooper reel.
True. Yeah. And then they put it all in the credits, and it's not funny to the audience because we weren't there.
All right. So we're going to head into our watchability scale. Mike, what did you rate this?
I'm giving it a solid 5. I don't think it's something to hunt out. I don't think it's worth looking for, but watch it for what it is.
Interesting. I was fairly negative about the film as well. However, I thought, I'm not going to go much higher. I'm going to give it a 6, just a 6 out of 10. I think it's a little better than, not seeking it out. I think there are moments in the film that are really, really well done.
I agree.
But overall, again, as we've stated earlier, the pacing was a problem. I think they could have cut at least 20 minutes or pared it down so it wasn't so long. There were some overacting issues. There was some...
You're really selling your 6 here.
Audio stuff, but there were some strong moments too. I did like the nanny scene, which we've talked about. I thought they did a good job at creating tension in between those moments. I know you didn't think that, but I thought they did. Baylock alone, just watching her performance, I think is good enough to warrant a 6 because she just blew me away with her subtle demonic. She's creepy.
I agree. There are parts of this that are an 8 to a 10, and Baylock I think is up there. Yeah, but the rest of the film just doesn't salvage it for me. So yeah,
all right.
I could be convinced to give it to a 6 just for the ease of putting it somewhere on that scale, but I can't go much higher than that.
I'm not going any higher than a 6. I'm staying at 6. You could stay at 5. That's fine. That you liked it less than I did, obviously. Yeah. Even though we both kind of were highly critical of it. I still say a 6. If you have time, and you got
literally nothing else to do.
Watch or read.
It's this or the 10th game of chess with your dog. Sorry.
Put some elastics around your dog
and watch Omen.
And watch the Omen. But other than that, I'd say that's it. That's all for us here today with the Omen. Thank you very much for listening to us. Be sure to check us out on our social media pages. On Instagram, we are at ScreamStreamPod. Stop by our website, www.screamsandstreams.com, where we have information about our episodes, descriptions of our categories, links to our research, and our watchability scale, where we rank all the films we are looking at. Please subscribe to, rate, and comment on our shows on any of the platforms where you get your podcasts. If you have a recommendation of a film you would like to see or hear, you can put it there.
On our website, actually, we have a page dedicated to movie suggestions now.
Awesome. Thank you for managing that. And until next time, this has been Chad and
Mike.
Thank you very much.